So, for those of you who are joining us, this whole meeting will be in English, of course. You do have captions available in your Zoom app. So, if you look at the toolbar at the bottom, you see closed captions. You can turn it on, select the language. Dave was kind enough to allow us to record this. So, later, everybody who's here today will have access to the recording, and then the transcription will be included. So, you can go ahead and review it as many times as you'd like. Dave, like I was saying before, I know you're extremely busy with your practice and your speaking engagements and your book tour. And the fact that you took time to be here with us, with this Brazilian community of agents, specifically this team right here, means a lot to me. Thank you. Thank you for being here, for being an inspiration to me, and for being a good friend. And I'm going to let you take the stage, and this is all you now.
David McKnight graduated from Brigham Young University with honors in 1997. He has been featured in Forbes, USA Today, The New York Times, Fox Business, Bloomberg Radio, MarketWatch, CBS Radio, CNBC, Yahoo Finance, Nasdaq.com, Reuters, Investors Business Daily, Kiplinger's, and numerous other national publications. David's best-selling book, The Power of Zero, has sold over 400,000 copies, and the updated and revised version was published by Penguin Random House in 2018. When it launched in September of 2018, it finished the week as the #2 most sold business book in the world. For 2 consecutive years, Forbes magazine has ranked The Power of Zero as a top 10 financial resource in the country. This book was recently made into a full-length documentary film called The Power of Zero. The Tax Train is Coming. When his most recent book, The Guru Gap, launched in December of 2024, it finished the week at #8 on the USA Today bestseller list and was the top-selling business book in the world. He and his wife Felice have 7 children. Please give a warm welcome to David McKnight.
All right. Well, Aldo, thank you for that, for the opportunity to be here and for getting so many people on the call. I feel like I recognize some of you, like I've spoken to you before. I don't know if any of you have heard me speak in person before, but I feel like this is not the first time I've been in front of a group of Brazilians from your firm, Aldo. So if this is the second time, I'm grateful to be back with you. So
Fantastic. Love having you here, Dave. And yep, this group has been in front of you before, and I'm glad that we're here again a second time.
good. Well, if you want to start out, I don't know if you have those interview questions teed up. We can start with those, and then I'll jump into my PowerPoint.
Absolutely. So we'll get right into it. So everybody, if you're able, please open your camera. Let's show Dave some love. Make sure that we're all here present. It really, really helps. So the center focus of us being here today is to talk about Dave's new book, The Secret Order of Millionaires, right, Dave? And I can't wait to get my hands on a copy. Now, you said that you dedicate the book to millennials and Gen Z, so the younger generations. Right? Why did you feel it was important to target younger investors specifically? And what financial challenges do you think that generation faces that previous generations didn't, like us, like Gen Xers and Boomers?
Well, I did a lot of research in preparation for this book. And so I studied the Gen Zs and I studied the millennials, and I compared how they're doing financially to their Gen X and baby boomer forebears. And what I discovered is that they've got, for example, higher debt to income ratios than the people who went before them. They have less knowledge about investments, and they have less money saved at the same point in their lives than their Gen X and baby boomer forebears. So they're a little bit behind the curve in terms of wealth building. And so I think that's for a number of reasons. I think that one of the reasons is we live in a very sort of an instant gratification culture, and we're flipping through our phones, and if something doesn't grab our attention in the first 3 seconds, we dismiss it and we're on to the next thing. And so I think that strategies that historically take the build wealth slowly, which are the most effective ones, are not all that interesting to some of the younger generations. They're sort of looking for that shortcut to the top of the mountain. They want to bend the wealth curve in their favor, but they want to sort of, in some cases, abandon a lot of the wealth principles that our parents and our grandparents used to become multimillionaires. And so I really wanted to bring some of those time-tested, proven principles of wealth building to these younger generations in case they somehow, missed them along the way because of all of the chaos of social media culture and this sort of shortcut to the top of the mountain type mentality. So that was really the goal.
That's fantastic. Kind of everybody's looking for the silver bullet, right? The
That's
magic
right.
pill.
That's exactly right. That's right.
Got it. Got it. Now you've written extensively about retirement planning, tax-free strategies, but this book kind of takes a different approach, right? What prompted you to write a fictional story about these principles of wealth building instead of another, like more of a traditional nonfiction business style book?
Yeah, so this is a fiction book. You can tell by the cover. It doesn't have the traditional business, the business cover. And really it goes along to, with who my audience is. My audience are people who are not necessarily interested in wading through this boring business book. I actually prefer to write fiction to nonfiction. And so I wanted to give them a story that would suck them in immediately from the very outset and hold their attention until the very end. And what I did was I embedded these 7 principles of tax-free wealth within the pages of the plot of the story. And so I just wanted to have a high likelihood that if they picked the story up, they would not only start it, but they would finish it. And I thought that was less likely to happen if it was sort of a boring business book, and much more likely to happen if it was if it was a story that had a really cool plot that was very absorbing and sort of sucked them in and didn't let them go until they got to the end of the book. And by the time they got to the end of the book, they will have absorbed, those 7 principles that were sort of embedded within the pages of the story. And so that was really the goal there.
Gotcha. So fair to say that the book reads more like a financial thriller than a traditional money book, right? And
Yeah.
if
So,
so,
yeah.
mhm. No, say if someone hasn't read it yet, and obviously nobody has because the book hasn't come out yet, how would you describe the style, or like what kind of experience are you trying to create for the reader?
Yes. Yeah, so this is literally a novel. It's like a financial thriller. I don't know how many of you out there have read any Dan Brown novels, The Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons. I don't know how many of you out there have seen A Sixth Sense by M. Night Shyamalan, but this has got a twist ending to it at the end that will knock you clean out of your chairs. I tell people, make sure you have a lot of cushions around your chair, because when you get to the end of the story, it's going to have a twist ending that absolutely knocks you out of your seat. So it's got a really cool, absorbing plot. It's not a boring book. This is distributed through Simon and Schuster. It's a major book publisher, and this is not a book that anyone should be ashamed of. It's a highly absorbing book that's a thriller, and it's got a twist ending that I think will be really intriguing for people to see. And so I just wanted to have a really compelling story that people would enjoy, and that they would absorb some really important financial wealth building principles along the way.
Nice. And I'm going to go a little off script here just for a quick moment, because I remember when I first read The Volatility Shield, actually, I listened to the audiobook. I was driving from Miami to Orlando, and it was the perfect read. It was about 3 hours, about as long as it takes me to get there. And I got to tell you, I mean, halfway through the book, I was like, oh, please don't end. I mean, I wanted that to keep going forever. So is it kind of like along the same lines? I mean, The Secret Order
It's
of
exactly,
Millionaires?
yeah. It's exactly the same thing. Volatility Shield had a really cool twist in it, a heartwarming ending. This is a very similar type of a story. So I think everybody's going to really love the story. We don't have it in Brazilian yet, or sorry, Portuguese. We don't have it in Portuguese yet, but it's just a very absorbing story, and I think everybody's going to really like it. So.
That's fantastic. I can't wait to read it. I'm sure everybody else here is also very excited. So, Dave, I know that you have prepared a presentation for us today to talk more in depth about the book. So, do we want to go ahead and jump into that now?
Yeah, let me tee that up.
Cool.
I'm going to go through the 7 principles of tax-free wealth, and I'm going to start with principle number 1. Here we go. And principle number 1 is really foundational. I know we talk a lot about life insurance, but one of the recurring themes you're going to notice here today is that life insurance works best when coupled with stock market investing. I am a huge fan of life insurance. I've been selling life insurance for the last 30 years of my life. But I will tell you that the more if all you ever talk about is life insurance, you're going to look like a life insurance salesman, and nobody hands their life savings over to a life insurance salesman. I had a guy come up to me and he said, Dave, he goes, all I did was talk about life insurance, and the best year I ever had was $30,000 of premium. And he said, I started talking about taking advantage of every nook and cranny in the IRS tax code, and life insurance was just one of those components. He goes, the first full year I did that, just like you told me, I did $300,000 of life insurance premium. So I tell people all the time, the more you talk about the stock market, the more you talk about Roth IRAs, the more you talk about Roth 401ks, the more life insurance you sell. Because if you look like a life insurance salesman, the people that have lots of money are not going to hand their wealth over to you. And so this is part of the presentation here today, is talking about situating life insurance within the broader financial context, so it doesn't look like the life insurance is the silver bullet, because life insurance is not a silver bullet, and it actually works best when used in concert with stock market investing. And so the first principle I'm going to tell you, and this is something that I absolutely abide by in my own life, I have massive amounts of money in the stock market. Stock market is the single greatest engine of wealth creation the world has ever seen. I want you to look at this chart on the right. When you start in 1824 and you go through today, you're going to notice that it's basically this permanent upward trend that is punctuated every few years by some down markets. The stock market allows you to participate in the growth of the most productive, innovative, dynamic companies across the planet. You have CEOs that wake up every morning and they say, what can I do to make my shareholders wealthy? It's an absolutely unique and really gratifying enterprise, and they're looking to channel profits directly into your pocket. And it's been a very successful enterprise over the last 80 years. It's averaged 10% per year. One of the things that I love about stock market investing is, if you look at this chart on the right, this is what I call the hassle spectrum. I am a business owner myself. I have 20 employees. I got to tell you that starting your own business, we're all business owners to some extent on this call. Starting your own business, it can be a pretty anxiety-inducing enterprise. It's very stressful. There's a lot of hassle. I have to hire employees. I have to fire employees. I have to keep track of expenses and revenue. It's a pretty daunting proposition. There's a lot of sort of heartache that goes into owning your own business. Same with real estate. I think real estate's a great way to build wealth, but there's a high hassle factor. I want you to look at the lower to middle portion of this chart. Owning money in the stock market is a relatively low hassle proposition. You get high return and you get low hassle. It's pretty easy to make money in the stock market, especially if you abide by all of the concepts I'm going to talk about today. Now, people may say, hey, Dave, this may have been good for my grandparents or even my parents, but isn't the stock market outdated? Can you really become wealthy by investing in the stock market? Isn't it slow, stodgy, and antiquated? Well, what alternatives do you have that over the last 100 years have turned so many people into millionaires? You've got business owners, you've got real estate, but what else is left? It's not going to be cryptocurrency. It's not going to be altcoins or NFTs or any of these newfangled things that today's generation are looking to get wealthy by. There's a recent study that's out of Fidelity. What they showed was that over the last 7 years, the number of millionaires, of people that just became millionaires through their 401k, quintupled from 100,000 to 500,000. This is a 500% increase in 7 years, and all of them were invested in broad stock market funds. So again, you can become a millionaire with an IUL, but it's pretty hard to do if you're just using an IUL. But when you couple IUL with stock market investing, it's very, very easy to become a millionaire. Now, I'm not a big fan of Dave Ramsey. I don't know that anybody in this call is a huge fan of Dave Ramsey, but Dave Ramsey did a survey, which I really appreciated. He studied 10,000 millionaires, and what he discovered was that most of them didn't have advanced degrees or high amounts of education. In fact, 8 in 10 of those millionaires became millionaires by simply investing through their company 401k or their Roth 401k, and most of them did not receive inheritance when they started off. So The long and the short of it is the stock market is going to create more millionaires than just about any other approach that we can use. It's averaged 10% over the last 80 years. It's what our grandparents and our parents used to become wealthy. It's proven, it's time tested, it's principle based, and it allows you to participate in the growth of the most dynamic, innovative companies in the world. And there's not a lot of hassle that it's involved. You don't have to hire and fire employees. You don't have to watch the bottom line. You simply put your money in the stock market and you take a nap for 40 years. Now, principle number 2 has to do with stock market investing. It's time in the market, not timing the market. And so by way of introduction, we know that a lot of wealth is built through long-term exposure to the stock market. And market timing is basically saying, we're supposed to buy low and sell high. So market timing basically says, I think that I can figure out when the market's going to be low and when the market's going to be high. And I can time my entry into the market based on when I think the market's going to go up and when I think the market's going to go down. So there's a lot of guesswork involved. Well, market timing has generally failed over time. Very few people become wealthy by trying to time the market. Why? Because you got to be right twice. You got to be right when you get in, and you got to be right when you get out. And that's pretty hard to do over a 40-year time period. In fact, if you miss just a couple of days, you're going to miss out on most of the growth that you could have experienced had you just left your money in the whole time. So a lot of you may have seen this chart. I like to talk about this chart a lot. Basically, it says that if you had started in January of 2003 and just dropped $10,000 into the S&P 500, took a nap for 20 years, woke up in 2022, that $10,000 would have been worth $64,844. But if you were someone who thought that they could time the market and you missed just the best 10 days in the market because you didn't get in quite at the right time or you didn't get out quite at the right time, you didn't have $65,000. You only had about $30,000. If you are a really bad market timer, which I think most of us, take a look at what happens. You miss the best 20 days, you only have 17,000. You miss the best 40 days, now you start losing money. You miss the best 60 days, that $10,000 became $4,000. So the long and the short of it is, market timing has always been a losing proposition because no one can predict perfectly when the market's going to go up and when the market's going to go down. And if you don't predict it perfectly, you miss the rebounds, and the rebounds are where all the money happens, or all the money is made. I want you to look at this chart on the right here. You can see that the stock market has gone up over time, but it never goes up in a straight line. It goes up like this. It's sort of like there's jagged edges to it. What does that mean? That means that the best days in the market will often happen right after the worst days. So what do people do? They say, oh, the market's going to go down. Oh, no, they get out of the market. And then when the market recovers, they're still sitting on the sidelines in cash and they miss out on all of the recovery. And this is one of the huge drawbacks of market timing. Most investors who try to time the market end up losing money. So ultimately, it's not timing the market, it's time in the market. That's what's going to grow your wealth over time. There's no shortcut to the top of the mountain. You can't build wealth by going on a hunch or a hot stock tip from Jim Cramer on TV or from your brother-in-law on the golf course. The slow, steady approach to building wealth is going to beat market timing every single time. Now, this is an important concept. The market is already priced in. What does that mean? The market is priced in. Every stock price reflects all of the available information in the world. Okay, so for example, if Apple's, let's take the Tesla stock is worth $200. It's worth $200 because it's taking into account all of the future sales, the economic expectations, the future cars that are going to be produced, the robots that Elon Musk has in store for us. All of these things are already baked into the price of the stock. So if somebody is saying, hey, look, I am predicting that Apple stock or NVIDIA stock is going to go up, they're claiming to have knowledge that the rest of the world doesn't have, or they're a member of Congress and they have access to insider information, or they're actually an inside trader, which is actually illegal. So this is a very famous quote. It's from a Reddit post. And it has to do with if the market is really already priced in. In other words, if Apple or say Tesla stock is worth $200, is it really worth $200? How do we know it's not going to go up? How do we know that it's not accounting for all of the great innovations that Elon Musk is planning on bringing to the world over the next 10 years? This is a very famous quote. I'll try to read through it quickly that really captures the essence of if the market is really priced in. This guy says, don't even ask the question. The answer is yes, it's priced in. Think Amazon will beat the next earnings? That's already been priced in. You work at the drive-thru for Mickey D's and found out that the burgers are made of human meat? Priced in. You think insiders don't already know that? The market is an all-powerful, all-encompassing being that knows the very inner workings of your subconscious before you were even born. Your very existence was priced in decades ago when the market was valuing Standard Oil's expected future earnings based on population growth that would lead to your birth. What age you would get a car, how many times you would drive your car every week, how many times you take the bus, train, etc. Anything you can think of has already been priced in. Even the things you aren't thinking of. You have no original thoughts. Your consciousness is just illusion, a product of the omniscient market. Free will is a myth. I don't believe that. But the market sees all, knows all, and will be there from the beginning of time until the end of the universe. The market is already priced in the heat death of the universe. So please, before you make a post on WSB asking whether Apple has priced in AirPods 11 sales or whatever, know that it has already been priced in. Don't ask such a dumb question again. So the long and the short of it is that you cannot predict what an individual stock is going to do because you just don't know. A stock is worth what it is because all of the available information in the world says that that's what it's worth. So why is Apple worth $274 a share? Because that's what the world says it's worth. All of the available information says that's what it's worth. It reflects the collective cumulative judgment of all the buyers and sellers across the planet. If new information were to suddenly emerge saying that it should be worth more people would buy the stock, and that would drive the price higher, and then it would settle in at a new sort of stasis point. So $274 is the market's best estimate of what Apple is worth right now. And if somebody comes and tells you that, hey, Apple is about to explode, it's about to go up, they're claiming to know something that the rest of the world doesn't. And you should look at it very, very skeptically. There's no way to predict what Apple is going to do next. Now, people say, hey, why should I invest in the stock market? Isn't it like going into a casino and gambling? Well, not exactly. And especially if you have a long-term investment horizon. The likelihood that you're going to lose money in the stock market over 1 month is only 38%. Over 1 year, it's 25%. Over 5 years, it's 11%. We start getting to the 10, 15, 20, 30-year time horizon. There is virtually no risk of losing money in the stock market. That's exactly the opposite of a casino. A casino, you walk in and you're pretty much guaranteed to lose money. Stock market, the longer you stay in, the more likely you are to earn money, okay? Now, you may say, hey, look, I would love to invest in the stock market, but I'm not going to invest when the political party that's in power that I don't like them. So, for example, you may say, I don't want to invest when, for example, Donald Trump is president, or I don't want to invest when Joe Biden is president. Well, guess what? If you had dropped $1,000 into the S&P 500 in 1953 and just left it in there for 2023, until 2023, watch what happens. Your money would be worth something like 1.6 million. Okay, that's $1,000 would be worth 1.6 million today. If you only invested when the Democrats were in power, you'd have almost nothing. If you only invested when Republicans were in power, you'd have almost nothing. The real power of investing has nothing to do with the political party that's in power. The real power of investing is leaving it invested the entire time, regardless of who is president. So if I were to summarize principle number 2, I'm going to tell you that predicting the stock market is an impossible task. When you miss key dates, your returns start to collapse. Long-term exposure to stock market investing without getting in and getting out reduces risk and it builds wealth over time. So the younger generations need to avoid the get-rich-quick schemes. They need to stay invested regardless of what the economy is doing, regardless of what's happening in the world or on the geopolitical scene. So that's principle number 2. And I'm going really fast because we've only got basically until the top of the hour. But principle number 3 is do not buy individual stocks. Buy the entire market. If you really want to make your life miserable, buy an individual stock. Individual stocks only make you money about 4% of the time. You would much prefer to have a stock portfolio that invests in thousands of stocks all across the planet. Wealth is created through systematic participation, not through picking individual stocks. Why are individual stocks so risky? Because you're basically claiming that you have information that a stock's going to go up that the rest of the world doesn't have. And basically, unless you're an inside trader or a politician, you do not have that information. The market is already priced in all known information. Individual stock bets are going to make your life miserable. It's going to be an emotional roller coaster for you. You're going to have all sorts of volatility. And even educated intuition is going to lose you money over time. So why is it so important to buy the entire market? So instead of buying one stock, you buy the entire market. It's going to help you tap into the global growth of the economy across the planet. You're going to not have the same individual risks that you would with an individual stock. And it's going to make it a much more enjoyable experience for you. You're not going to experience the emotions of the up and down of an individual stock. And it ensures you're always going to be participating in the growth of the stock market over time. Now, this is a really interesting chart. It's called a quilt chart. And let's say that back in 2016, somebody told you that you should invest in energy because it was the number one sector. These are all sorts of different sectors. We've got real estate, we've got energy, we've got financials, we've got information technology, we've got consumer staples. But energy back in 2016 happened to be the top performer that year. So what if somebody said, hey, look, energy is doing great. It led all other sectors in 2016. You should put all your money into energy stocks. Well, watch what would have happened. In 2017, energy came in last in place. So same as 2018, same as 2019, same as 2020. You basically would have lost all your money. So the moral of the story here is you don't invest in one stock or one sector, you invest in the entire market, because that guarantees you're always going to be participating in the winners each and every year. You're going to be participating in information technology and healthcare and consumer discretionary, so on and so on and so forth. So the best way to own the entire market is to invest in index funds. And this is what I recommend. This is not just me, but a lot of really famous investors, John Bogle, Warren Buffett, allocate about 70% to a total U.S. stock market index fund. That's going to allow you to participate in the single greatest engine of financial growth the world has ever seen, which is U.S. stock-based companies. Invest heavily here. And then the other 30% you put in a total international stock market index fund. Now you may say, hey, Dave, why not just put everything in America? Why not just put everything in the total US stock market index? Well, here's why. Because there's going to be some decades where international outperforms. So for example, from 2000 to 2009, international did much, much better than the US. So you want to have most of your money in the US stock market and then have 30% in international. You're going to own over 12,000 companies worldwide. So instead of owning an individual stock like Apple or just Tesla or Nvidia, you're going to own almost all of the top producing and innovating companies across the planet. Now, a lot of you guys have heard of mutual funds. Mutual funds were very popular in the 1990s because mutual fund managers were growing portfolios at 30%. And back then you could sort of throw a dart at a dartboard and pick a stock that was going to be successful because everything was going up. So mutual fund managers over time, however, started to lose out to indexes. So mutual fund managers, you pay them a lot of money to pick stocks that are going to do well. Well, they started to lose to index funds where people were just investing in the entire market. And so eventually mutual fund managers started to invest, put most of their money. In fact, about 70% of mutual fund portfolios are now invested just in index funds, but mutual fund managers are still charging people tons of money to manage their retirement savings. And I love this. Let's see here. I love this little video here because it shows you what it's like paying a mutual fund manager to have him invest his money or invest your money in index funds. So the guy with the vest is sort of like the mutual fund manager. He's opening the door for people. He's telling people to get on. Once they get on, he's sort of closing the door, and then he's pushing the subway off. So is this guy really being helpful at all? This guy's not really being helpful. It's like a mutual fund manager who's relying upon the growth of an index fund to help people make money. All right. How do I get to the thing? There I go. So if I were to summarize principle number 3, do not invest in individual stocks. It's going to make your life miserable. It's going to make you feel all sorts of grief and emotion. Invest in the entire market. It's more reliable. It's going to give you long-term growth and peace of mind. You don't have to time the market. You don't need stock tips from your brother-in-law on the golf course or hunches. You just need a global index portfolio and a lot of time. Okay, principle number 4 is set it and forget it. Here's part of the problem is most people just invest whenever they have money. You need to be investing on a systematic, automated way. You should have money that's zapped out of your paycheck. When you guys set up your IULs for your clients, hopefully you're doing it on a monthly basis where that money gets zapped out of their account and goes into their IUL so that it's out of mind and out of sight. That is the perfect way to build a long-term investment plan, because guess what? If every month you have to decide whether or not you're going to invest, there's going to be a month where you decide not to invest because maybe things are a little too tight. And then what happens is you fall off the wagon and it's really, really hard to get back on. And so you don't want to have to make the decision every month whether you invest or not. Me personally, I have money zapped out of my account every week. Every week I have money going into the stock market and into my life insurance. It's all happening out of mind, out of sight. You don't want to tinker with your plan. Once it's in place, you just let it ride. Long-term wealth requires discipline, not constant adjustments. So we talked about the importance of automating your investing and make sure that you're consistent. And the younger you start, the better it is. Now, there's a huge cost of procrastination. Just to give you an example, if you wanted to save $5 million by the time you're 65 and you think you can grow your money at 10% per year, watch what happens. If you're 25 years old, you're only going to have to save about $700 a month or $8,400 a year. If you wait just 10 years, watch what happens. That $8,400 goes all the way up to $22,500. That's almost triple. If you wait another 10 years after that, it's no longer $700 a month. You're talking about $5,000 a month or $62,000 a year. There's never a better time to start saving than right now. And guess what? Once your automated plan is in place, don't look at your account statements. Why should you not look at your account statements? Because your account statements are going to cause you to feel emotion. They're going to cause you to feel panic. They're going to cause you to feel grief or anxiety. And that's going to make you make stupid investment decisions, which will cause you to lose money over time. Emotional investing is the enemy of building wealth. What you want to do is you want to get your plan in place, and then you want to ignore your investment statements and just take a nap for 40 years. That is going to increase the likelihood that you are going to become a millionaire over time. Emotional reactions cause investors to buy high and sell low instead of buying low and selling high. Now, I don't know how many of you know this guy. I would be surprised if many of you did. But back in the 80s, there was this guy named Mike Papil who had a company that sold ovens that cooked rotisserie chickens. And he had a very famous phrase that he used, which I think is a perfect summary of principle number 4. Take a listen to what he has to say.
Simple. Isn't it, you guys? Isn't it simple?
Is that nice? I'll put the lid on. This is kind of nice. There it goes. Excellent. Slide this over. Get this chicken over, this chicken over, and this chicken over. And I'll just walk over here. I'll put it in this new Pro model. I'll slide it back. If you followed all the instructional material, you just set it and forget it.
Folks, it's that easy. You get your plan in place and then you set it and forget it. It happens with your IUL. It happens with your stock market investing. Get your plan in place, set it and forget it. Take a nap for 40 years. You're going to wake up and you're going to be an absolute millionaire. All of the studies bear this out. This is not stuff I'm just making up. Set your plan early, automate it, and then walk away. Why does ignoring your investments work? If you buy the entire market, which we've talked about, and you automate your contributions, the only real threat is your own behavior. Best defense is to stop looking at your account statements. I can tell you this from personal experience. I never look at my account statements. I don't care what the stock market is doing. I know that if I ignore it, it's going to increase the likelihood that I'm going to build money over time. Long-term discipline is greater than short-term tinkering. Now, I don't know how many of you guys saw the Olympics 2 years ago when it was the Summer Olympics. I think it was this in Paris, I guess? There was a guy who was a pistol shooter from Turkey, and he showed up at the event, and he didn't have any fancy equipment. He just walked up with his gun. He had a pair of glasses on and a uniform, and that was basically it. And he picked it up, and he just started shooting his gun. And guess what? He won a silver medal that year. And the whole thing went viral because this guy, nobody had ever seen anything like it, because most of the people were just like the guy on the left. They had fancy goggles and headbands and forearm guards and holsters and vests and crazy scopes on their guns. Well, I liken the guy on the right as what you should be investing like. This is the guy who has been dollar cost averaging into the S&P 500 for the last 12 years, has no idea what's happening in the market because he hasn't checked his portfolio in a decade, versus the guy on the left who maybe has 4 monitors where he's following all sorts of individual stocks. He's got 6 brokerage accounts. He's listening to advice from 15 stock forums on the internet. He's making 40 to 50 trades a day, and he's down 60% today because he's has no idea what the market's going to do because it's impossible to predict the market. So the moral of the story is you want to be the guy on the right, not the guy on the left. Okay, you may have heard of this story of Sam Spender and Susie Saver. Sam Spender knew Susie in high school. They both were friends. When Susie graduated from high school, she decided that she wanted to save. She appreciated the value of compound growth, and so she saved $2,000 per year for the next 12 years. And so she saved $24,000 total. And then when she was 34, she had a life emergency and she stopped investing, but she left all of the money in there and it just kept growing and compounding at 10% per year. So by the time she reached 65, that $24,000 turned into almost $1 million. Well, Sam Spender was more of a party animal. He liked going to clubs. He liked driving fast cars. And so he didn't save any money at all. But by the time he reached 34, when Susie stopped saving, he decided, hey, I think I'm going to start saving now before it's too late. So he starts saving every single year, $2,000 per year for the next 30 years. So he basically saves almost more than $60,000. And Susie, remember, she only saved about $24,000. But by the time he reached 65, Sam only had $442,000, whereas Susie had twice as much. She had $993,000. What's the moral of the story here, folks? Today is always the best time to start saving. Do not procrastinate. You need to get money into the market, have it start growing and compounding, and that's going to give you a great outcome over time. So if I were to summarize principle number 4, I'd simply say automate your investing. It's got to be out of mind, out of sight. Time is always your best asset when it comes to investing. Do not procrastinate. It'll cost you money. Don't ever look at your account statements. Get your plan in motion, then take a nap for 40 years. Okay, principle number 5 is get to the 0% tax bracket in retirement. For those of you who read The Power of Zero, you'll know that this really is my sweet spot. This is really what I love talking about. And what do we know? We know that the U.S. is on a apocalyptic debt trajectory. Our entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid are massively underfunded. The best way to shield yourself from the impact of higher taxes is to get to the 0% tax bracket. We know that the debt, if you look at this chart on the left, is really on this catastrophic trajectory. We're growing our debt by $2 trillion per year over the next 10 years. Then it's going to go up by $3 trillion per year every year after that. We're currently at $39 trillion. We got $200 trillion in underfunding for Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. The Social Security Trust Fund is going to go bust in about 7 years. The Congress is going to have to find a way to get huge infusions of cash to be able to pay for all of these unfunded obligations. And that's why experts are saying that tax rates in the future are going to be dramatically higher than they are today. I love talking about David Walker. He's a personal friend of mine, but he's also a personal hero. He's the former Comptroller General of the U.S. government under Bush and Clinton. And he appeared on a radio show back in 2010 talking about his new book, Come Back America. He told the radio show host, he said, hey, look, tax rates have to double or we're going to go broke as a country. And she didn't believe him. So he says, look, I can give you one 4-letter word to explain why tax rates have to double. And she couldn't figure out what it was. So they opened up the phone lines and people started to call in and nobody could figure out what that one 4-letter word was to explain why tax rates have to double. They heard debt, they heard kids, they heard jobs, they heard fear. One guy even said health. They said, no, it's not that. What is the 4-letter word that explains why tax rates have to double? He says it's math. Math is the 4-letter word that explains why tax rates have to double. What did he mean by math? Basically, we're saying, look, if this is what you're spending and this is what's coming in, you either have to double what's coming in, cut in half what's going out, or some combination of the two. It's simple math. So Penn Wharton recently came out with a study in 2023 that they said if we don't right our fiscal ship of state by 2043, that no combination of raising taxes or reducing spending will prevent the financial collapse of our nation. So I'm predicting that come around 2035, tax rates are going to skyrocket to prevent our country from going broke. What's the best way to insulate yourself from the impact of higher taxes? It's to get to the 0% tax bracket. Why? Because if you're in the 0% tax bracket and tax rates double, 2 times 0 is still 0. I'm a big fan taking advantage of every little nook and cranny in the IRS tax code. What are we talking about? Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks, Roth conversions, taking money out of IRAs and 401ks up to your standard deduction. And if you can keep your, of course, properly structured cash value life insurance, obviously plays a role. And if you can keep your provisional income low enough, then your Social Security is also going to be tax-free. Our clients should have the goal of getting to the 0% tax bracket in retirement. So in summary, our tax rates, it's not a question of if tax rates are going up, it's when. The debt trajectory guarantees it, as do the unfunded obligations for Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. The best way to shield yourself from the impact of higher taxes is to adopt a balanced, comprehensive approach to 0% tax bracket. Why? Because if tax rates double, 2 times 0 is still 0. Okay, principle number 6. Let's talk about life insurance. You know, Ernst & Young, which is one of the biggest accounting firms in the world, they came out with a study recently that says that you should be allocating 30% of your retirement savings to a volatility shield, which they called Index Universal Life, a volatility shield account in the form of Index Universal Life. So let's talk briefly what I mean by a volatility shield and what's the problem we're trying to solve here. A volatility shield is designed to maximize your income in retirement, and it protects you from sequence of returns risk. What is sequence of returns risk? Well, if you're in retirement and your stock market portfolio goes down and you take money out of your stock portfolio when the market is down, what happens? It can send your portfolio into a death spiral from which it never recovers. And so there's got to be a way to protect yourself from this. And that's where the volatility shield comes into play. And it frees you from what we call the 4% rule. All right, let's define what the 4% rule is, because you can't understand how the volatility shield or index universal life can help your clients unless you first understand the 4% rule. There's a guy named Bill Bengen. He was an MIT trained financial advisor back in 1992. He was really concerned because people were taking these really willy-nilly haphazard distributions from their portfolio. So for example, if they had $1 million in their IRA, they were taking, in some cases, 8% out per year, 80,000 out per year. And he started to run these simulations. And what he found sort of shocked him to his very core. What he found is that if people take 8% distribution rates, they were running out of money almost 80, 90% of the time in retirement before, actuarial life expectancy. So he said, this doesn't seem right. He found that even 5% distributions were bankrupting people half the time. So he said, let's run some simulations, some computer simulations. Let's figure out what a true sustainable withdrawal rate really is. And what he concluded was that a 4% distribution was a sustainable withdrawal rate, and it would allow your money to last through life expectancy just about 100% of the time. So for example, 4% rule says if you have $1 million in your IRA or 401k at retirement, you can withdraw $40,000 that first year and then adjust it every year thereafter for inflation. And the reason it's so conservative is because you can take that 4% out, rain or shine. Even when the stock market is down, you can take that 4% out and your money is still likely to last your entire life. The problem is, without market downturns, you could be withdrawing a much higher amount. So the 4% rule is a very expensive way to go. And let me give you an idea of how expensive it is. Let's say that you have $100,000 that you want to live on in retirement and you're living by the 4% rule. Divide 4% into $100,000, and this tells you how much you need to save by day one of retirement. So if you need $100,000 above and beyond what Social Security is requiring in retirement, you're going to have to save $2.5 million by day one of retirement. Well, how many people do you know that are on track to save $2.5 million by day one of retirement? Not a lot of people. And if they have a shortfall, here's what they can do to try to bridge that shortfall. They can save more, spend less, work longer, die sooner, or take more risk in the stock market. Not everybody really wants to do that. So is there a better way? I'm here to tell you that there is a better way, and it involves cash value life insurance, particularly indexed universal life. So what is a volatility shield? A volatility shield is a separate account that holds 3 to 5 years worth of living expenses, okay? And what you do with this account is you pay for your living expenses in the year after a down year in the stock market, okay? And what that allows you to do is it allows you to give your stock portfolio a chance to recover before you take further distributions. So, let me give you an idea of how some people would do this. I don't know how many of you have heard of Susie Orman. If you've read my book, The Guru Gap, you've heard of Susie Orman. But Susie Orman said she agrees with this. She says you should have 3 to 5 years of living expenses inside a savings account, which is a total disaster because what are savings accounts growing these years? Basically nothing. If you can draw money out of that volatility shield account instead of out of the stock market in the year following a down year in the market, look at what happens to your sustainable withdrawal rate. You can go from 4% to as high as 8%, okay? This is absolutely massive. And what's the likelihood that your money is going to last through life expectancy? Well, according to this chart, if you have 5 years worth of living expenses accumulated in your IUL by day one of retirement, you have a 93% likelihood that by taking 8% withdrawal rates from your stock portfolio, that your money will last a full 30-year retirement. All right, what are we looking for in a volatility shield account? Obviously, a savings account isn't going to work. We do want an account that's safe, that cannot lose money in the stock market. You cannot protect yourself from stock market volatility with an account that's exposed to stock market volatility. So you can't lose money in the stock market. It's got to be tax-free. When I say tax-free, I'm talking free from federal tax, state tax, and capital gains tax, okay? If it's not tax-free, then you're going to lose money along the way to taxes, which means you're going to have to put even more money into it to be able to accumulate the 3 to 5 years worth of living expenses by day one of retirement. It's got to be productive. It can't be growing 0.0% in a savings account, like Susie Orman says. You need to grow it between 5 and 7% net per year, and it has to be in place by day one of retirement. So the only tool that really qualifies is Index Universal Life. Why? Because it has historical returns between 5 and 7% net of fees. It has a guarantee against stock market loss. And when you take that 0% wash loan, your distributions are tax-free and cost-free. Index Universal Life is really the only tool that really solves the problem. Now, let me give you an example of how powerful this can be. Let's say John and Mary are age 30. They're contributing $14,000 per year to their Roth IRAs, and they think it can grow at 10% per year. By the time they reach 65, they will have accumulated $3.8 million. I know that sounds great, but because they have to live by the 4% rule, they can only take out $151,000 per year, adjusted every year thereafter for inflation. Well, guess what? Watch what happens if they reallocate 30%. This is just like Ernst & Young says. They reallocate 30% of that $14,000 or $4,200 to an IUL. They now invest the remaining $9,800 in their Roth IRAs. The Roth grows at 10%. By the time they're 65, they're only going to have $2.6 million. Remember, they had $3.7 million had they put all of the money in here, but now they only have $2.6 million. They put the balance into the IUL. If that IUL grows at 6%, they're going to have about $468,000 of cash value by age 65. They can now use that money to pay for living expenses in the year following a down year in the stock market. Watch what happens if they do that. Because they can now take 8% out of their IRA because of the IUL is allowing them to take a larger amount out of their Roth IRA because they're living out of their IUL in the year following a down year in the market. They can now take $212,000 per year instead of $151,000. So they just increased their income by 40% over the standard stock market approach. And people were shocked to their core when they saw Ernst & Young come out with their study that showed that you can have 40% higher income in retirement by simply adding an IUL as a volatility shield to your investments in retirement. So now Dave Ramsey, we know Dave Ramsey hates cash value life insurance. He says 100% of cash value life insurance sucks 100% of the time. Susie Orman says if anybody ever talks to you about IUL or cash value life insurance, you are to shut down the conversation immediately and never work with that person again. Clark Howard, who's another financial guru, says the only person that would ever try to sell you an IUL is a commission-hungry, money-grubbing life insurance salesman. It's a steaming hot pile of garbage that you don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. Do you think any of those people understand the math that we're discussing on this slide? That when you incorporate an IUL into regular stock market investing, when you use them together, you increase your income in retirement by 40%. Okay, they just don't understand. They're ignorant to the math that we're talking about on this slide. And so when you utilize IUL in concert with stock market investing, that's when the magic happens. That's when all of the benefit starts to experience. IUL by itself is not going to do it. Roth IRA by itself isn't going to do it. But when you put them together, that's when the magic happens. So if I were to summarize principle number 6, I'd simply say that volatility shield is going to protect your stock market portfolio from sequence of return risk. It allows your portfolio to recover before you take further distributions, and it can increase your sustainable withdrawal rate on your stock portfolio from 4 to 8%, with a 95% chance your money will last through life expectancy. And Index Universal Life is the only financial tool that can serve as an effective volatility shield in retirement. All right, last principle. And we are making good time. Last principle, principle number 7, work with a good financial advisor. Folks, your clients are not going to be able to accomplish what we talked about in this presentation without your help. Even the smartest investors, the smartest do-it-yourself investors make mistakes because they succumb to fear, greed, panic, euphoria. Without someone holding their hand or holding their feet to the fire along the way, they are going to make stupid emotion-based decisions. A good financial advisor more than justifies their fees or the commission they make along the way. So what is a good financial advisor supposed to do? I think most investors know what they should do, but when the stock market gets jittery or volatile, they start making dumb choices. And a good financial advisor says, look, let's stick to the program. Let's stick with your long-term objectives. Let's not make stupid, emotion-based decisions. Let's maintain discipline even when things get hairy in the market. Now, the average do-it-yourself investor loses 3% per year because they make emotion-based decisions. The average investment advisor is going to make 1% either by charging a fee or maybe through a commission. That means that by using a good advisor, people are going to be 2% ahead because we helped hold their feet to the fire and hold their hand along the way. There's a new study that just came out that said the average advisor, the average client that works with a good advisor is going to see between 2.39% and 2.78% annual return premium over those people who do not have an advisor. So all of the value that everybody on this call brings to their clients is massive. And when you amortize that out over a full lifetime, it's going to add millions and millions of dollars to our clients' pockets. A good advisor can help with a good IUL, executing that IUL strategy and coordinating all the different tax-free strategies. Now, if you look right here, the average investor back in between 1997 and 2016 earned 2.3% by simply going by emotion. They want to buy low and sell high, but they always buy high and sell low. If you had just simply parked your money in the S&P 500 and had a good advisor holding your hand along the way, making sure that you stayed invested the entire time, you would have been almost 5% better off during that time period. So 7.7% versus 2.3%. So why do I love principle number 7? Because it completes the framework. It's sort of the crown jewel of the entire operation here. It supports all the prior principles. When you have a good financial advisor, it teaches you. They teach you that the stock market is the single greatest engine of wealth creation the world's ever seen. That time in the market is much better than timing the market. That you should buy the entire market, not a single stock. That once your plan is automated and in place, you need to set it and forget it. The best way to shield yourself from the impact of higher taxes is to get to the 0%, through a balanced, comprehensive, tax-free planning approach to retirement. And a volatility shield is the best way to dramatically increase your retirement income once you retire. So principles 1 through 6 are much more easily accomplished when you have the help of a qualified financial advisor. So folks, this is what we do day in and day out. Our job is to help our clients make good financial decisions and to avoid making dumb emotion-based decisions that's going to cost them a lot of money over time. The average investor that succumbs to their emotions is not going to make money. The average investor with a good advisor, like people on this call, is much more likely to become a millionaire. Good financial advisors more than justify their fee or the commission they make along the way. We help our clients stay the course, execute tax-free retirement planning principles, and coordinate funding and structuring of the IUL. Now, usually at this time, I get a question from an advisor, and they'll say, Dave, this is a really important message. And I think we can all agree that this is a really important message. They'll say, how am I supposed to bottle up this message and unleash it on my clients and prospects? I say, well, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. I can send you the script for this presentation. It's only 50 pages long, single-space typewritten, and you can take this presentation, you can give it to your clients. But I said, there may be a better way. I have written a book called The Secret Order of Millionaires, right? And The Secret Order of Millionaires talks about every single one of these principles. And so this is what I tell people. I say, look, take a copy of this book, send a little handwritten note to your client that says, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, the other day I was reading this book. As I was reading this book, I couldn't stop thinking about your situation. Do me a favor, read the book. I'll call back in a week. Let me know what you think. I have a friend of mine who works for Farmers Insurance. He never did more than $40,000 of premium in a single year. He started adopting this approach. He would send one of my books to his clients and he'd say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, the other day I was reading this book. As I was reading this book, I couldn't stop thinking about your situation. Do me a favor, read the book. I'll call you back in a week. Let me know what you think. The first full year of that he did that, he went from $40,000 of premium to $363,000 of premium. It worked so well, he decided to do it the second year. He did $365,000 of premium, finished number one in his entire company for life insurance premium. Now, the converse is also true. I had a guy out of Colorado. He said, Dave, I bought 40 of your books. I didn't sell a single policy. I said, well, did you follow up with the people you gave the book to? He goes, I didn't know that I had to. So folks, if you buy my books and you use them to set the table for a conversation about life insurance, you have to keep following up until they read the book. I promise you that if they read the book, that they will eventually become clients because they can't escape the logic and the time-tested, proven financial wealth building principles that they're going to be finding in this book. So this book is never less expensive than it is today. You can buy this. It's normally, if you wait until it comes out on Amazon, it's going to be $25 a copy. I am knocking $5 off per copy. I am paying that out of my own pocket so that instead of you buying it for 25, I'm supplementing it with my own money. So it's only costing you $20. This deal is only good today. I encourage you to buy in bulk, and you have to use the code SECRET at checkout, capital letters, all uppercase, SECRET at checkout. I would love for you guys to help me make this book into a New York Times bestseller. Why? Because guess what? If you're handing copies of this book out in an attempt to help your clients become financially independent, and it says New York Times bestseller at the top, they're much more likely to take it seriously if it's a New York Times bestseller. Last year, my book, The Guru Gap, sold enough to become a New York Times bestseller. It was the number 8 in the country, right behind Melania Trump's autobiography called Melania. But I was beat out by Snoop Dogg and Dolly Parton, both of whom came out with cookbooks right around Christmas time. So I was knocked off the list by those two, by Dolly Parton and Snoop Dogg. I really need your help. I would love it if you helped me push this book to the top of the New York Times bestseller list. I would love it if a book about life insurance and successful tax-free retirement planning made it into the mainstream and became a New York Times bestseller. I can't do it without your help. So again, you can use the QR code here on the right. Just hold your phone up to it, and it'll take you to a landing page, and you just have to buy as many books as you want. You can buy 10 books. If you buy 10 books, it's going to save you $50. If you buy 50 books, it's going to save you $250. If you buy 100 books, it's going to save you $500. So I'm really grateful that you guys had me on today. I would really be honored if you bought copies of my book to help this become a New York Times bestseller. So I will leave this up, and Aldo, I'm done with my presentation. I'm happy to hand it back to you. If people have questions or comments that they would like to make at this point, this is I think we still have a little bit of time left.
Absolutely. Wow, that was incredible, Dave. So much great information. And I think that, as you were talking about long-term investing, betting on the market, not individual stocks, I just couldn't help but think, as we're building this volatility shield strategy for our clients using IUL, provided we're picking a good company with good, rate integrity and all of that, and a good S&P 500 strategy, it kind of translates into the IUL. So even for the more hardcore stock market investors, we'll be kind of speaking the same language to them as we build their volatility shield. So that's fantastic. So here's one thing that I would like to offer everybody that's here on this call today. I know we had limited time, and I know Dave talks fast, right? And I'm sure some of you may have not grasped 100% of everything. So what I'd like to offer you is this. I'm going to reach out to everybody that signed up for this call via email with an invitation to join me on a separate call that we're going to do in Portuguese. Well, we'll kind of do a deep dive into the concepts that Dave shared today so we can discuss this. But I'm only going to allow people who bought Dave's book. So I'm going to send you an invitation. You send me a screenshot of your receipt, and then we're going to do kind of like a mastermind so we can discuss this further. So if you haven't ordered the book yet, go ahead and order it now. Make sure you do it because this call is coming very, very soon. Ellen had asked a question, let me see here, about like if you have like a rule of thumb of stock market. I know you say like 30% of your stock market investing in the volatility shield, but as a general rule for a diversified portfolio, they were like including real estate, even like some fixed income. Is there like a general rule, or is it more like individualized, based on the client's profile that you would do like the portfolio allocation?
It's individualized because I would say of all the thousands of people I've met with over the last 30 years, not a lot of them have a lot of real estate. Most of them have just been saving money in their 401k over a long period of time. They've got a couple $1 million because they just saved on a monthly basis. And so this is where I say, okay, look, 30% of your wealth needs to be in cash value life insurance. And I'm going to tell you this, it's going to be much easier if you approach somebody who's already saving $30,000 per year into, say, the stock market, it's going to be much easier for you to go up to them and say, hey, look, I think I can make a mathematical case for why you should divert 30% of that 30,000, which is 9,000, and put it into an IUL every year versus persuading them to not do any stock market investing at all and take that $30,000 and put it all into an IUL. I think we're going to scare more people away who are already convinced that stock market investing is the way to go. Let's say instead of putting 100% of your money into the stock market, let's just peel off 30% of that. I think we're going to have a lot more successful conversations if it's not all or nothing, right? If it's IUL or bust. I think it's going to be much more easy to tell somebody, hey, look, let's just take 30% of what you were putting into your retirement savings. Let's put that into the IUL. When you combine the stock market with the IUL, well, that's where the magic happens. And they're going to start referring you around, and you're going to start getting referred into higher and higher and higher net worth clients. And that's when the size of your premiums is really going to explode. So I think that are just a general rule of thumb, and this is outlined in the book, 30% towards IUL, 70% towards stock market investing.
That's fantastic. And Dave, do you have time for one more?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Miriam asked, I think, a really good question in contrast with what we just discussed here. And he says, as someone building a financial practice focused on helping immigrants create tax-free wealth, what would you say is the most important belief I need to instill in my clients so they actually take action now, not just understand the strategy? So this is for someone who is not doing anything currently.
Well, probably if they're not doing anything, that now is always the best time to start, right? If they have not done anything yet, they need to get off of square one. They need to start investing, whether it's IUL, stock market, some combination of the two. They need to start doing something because they've been paralyzed to this point in their life and they haven't done anything. And they need to understand that every year that goes by, where they don't save anything at all, it's going to be that much harder to save what they need to be saving for retirement. So really, time is on your side when you're young. There's never a better time to start investing than right now. Show them the math. Show, hey, look, if you don't start now and wait 10 years, you're going to have to save 3 times as much. If you wait 20 years, you're going to have to save 10 times as much. So it's always easier if you start when you're young. I think that's probably the single principle. And then on top of that, I would say start young and then start saving in tax-free accounts because your tax bracket, if you're young, is almost certainly going to be higher when you retire than it is today.
That's great. That's fantastic. I'm gonna just do one more here because I think it's really important, Dave. And then you tell me if you need to get off. So Katarina is asking essentially if we're using an IUL as a volatility shield and the IUL is also attached to the performance of the S&P 500 or the stock market linked to the performance, how can it work like that? I mean, couldn't the IUL suffer the same consequences as a down year in the stock market? I kind of know the answer, but I want to let you answer that.
I'm not sure I totally understand the question.
If we're using the IUL allocated to the S&P 500 to be used during down years of the stock market, if our money is allocated to the S&P 500, wouldn't it suffer the same consequences of a down market as our direct stock market investments? And obviously the answer is no because of the floor.
Yeah, the guarantee against market loss. And that's why the IUL works so well. The IUL works so well because it can shield you from a down year in the market because it's got a floor. It's got a guarantee that you won't lose money in the market. So while your stock portfolio is down, you can draw money out of your IUL, which gives your stock portfolio a chance to recover before you take further distributions. And that's going to explode the sustainable withdrawal rate that you can take on your stock portfolio because you let it recover before you took further distributions.
Perfect. So one final quick message to everyone, and Dave, I'm sorry, I'm going to do this in Portuguese. Para todo mundo que está aqui, então, eu falei antes, nós vamos criar nós vamos fazer uma reunião para discutir tudo o que foi falado hoje em português, para a gente poder falar mais a fundo. Se você comprou o livro, depois você vai ter um lugar onde você pode me mandar um screenshot do seu recibo, e aí as pessoas que compraram o livro vão participar desse encontro e a gente vai a fundo, e nós vamos ficar 1, 2, 3 horas, o tempo que for, para a gente se aprofundar. Dave, thank you so very much for being here. It's an honor and a pleasure to have such an amazing, amazing person sharing his knowledge here with the Brazilian community. I'm so happy and honored to call you a friend, and I look forward to getting my copy of the book soon.
Muito obrigado.
Oh, there you go. All right, everybody. Let's thank Dave for being here. All right, Dave. I'll catch you online soon.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.